Tom Thibodeau out after 5 seasons with the New York Knicks, fired just days after leading the Knicks to the first conference finals in 25 years. I want to give you some numbers on Tibbs' tenure in New York. 226 and 174 career record. Back-to-back 50-win season. The 51 wins this season was the most since 2013. First conference finals I mentioned since 2000. Between 2001 and 2020, the Knicks advanced out of the first round just once. Under Tom Thibodeau, they did it 3 times. He is 4th in career wins, 5th in playoff wins, 4th in playoff winning percentage. Bear in mind, he coached there just 5 years.
Right.
And 6th in overall winning percentage, the second longest tenured head coach since Red Holtzman, behind just his mentor, Jeff Van Gundy. Before Tibbs, this team was an abject disaster. They were a laughingstock. They had won 1 playoff series under the previous 12 head coaches. 12 head coaches there. But the Knicks decided that it was time to go another way. I'll put it out there to you. Why do you think that the Knicks chose to fire Tom Thibodeau?
Well, look, first of all, when you say laughingstock, I think we also have to rewind people to remember it wasn't just on the court. The entire organization was such a joke that it was literally the butt of children's movies. There was that animated Disney movie that made some joke about the Knicks in the middle of it. Randomly, it was like a drive-by. I mean, culturally, as an organization, there was that feeling of, why would you go play for them? It's a disaster. Your career is going to, go in the toilet. It's a basketball desert in terms of common sense, all of that. And what Leon Rose and Tom Thibodeau did when they came in was legitimize being a Knick again, which is crazy that was necessary. But when you read off all the things he did, it goes way beyond on the court stuff. I was shocked, even in today's NBA, where apparently all we do is fire coaches. I think there was some stat, it was at the last 5-6 coaches of the year were fired within
championship coaches.
Coaches were fired. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Unless your name is Eric Spoelstra, you have no job security in the NBA.
But it goes beyond that. I mean, this really does go beyond that. And look, we can get into it, and there are certainly valid reasons of why you think Tom Thibodeau might not be able to get this New York Knicks team to a championship. I don't know what percentage of that is coaching. It might be this New York Knicks team. But regardless, if being to the Game 6 of the conference finals isn't good enough, I just don't know what we're asking of people.
Yeah. The 2 arguments that I've seen about the Knicks needing to replace Tom Thibodeau. Number one, doesn't play enough guys. He doesn't use his depth. To those people, I would ask, what depth? What depth
That's
are we
what I
talking
mean. How
about
much
here?
of it is coaching and how much of it's the roster?
I want to meet some of the campaign DeLon Wright truthers that are out there that think that Tom Thibodeau should have been playing them more during the regular season in the playoffs. Obviously, DeLon Wright played well when he got into the rotation in the conference finals. Landry Shamet played well, but there are reasons these guys were not playing, and those reasons go well beyond Tom Thibodeau. I mean, how many teams has DeLon Wright played for in his career?
They didn't play well enough that they won the series, so clearly.
Exactly. That's the other part of it. The other part of it is his offense is a little bit too simplistic. He puts too much pressure on Jalen Brunson. Some of that may be true. Might be able to diversify the offense a little bit. But that offense got them through Detroit in the first round, beat Boston in 6 games in the second round, and was really just one catastrophic collapse in Game 1 from forcing a Game 7 at the least with this Indiana series. I thought this decision was crazy. I understand that it was made. It didn't shock me that it was made because this was kind of, when it wasn't immediately put out there that Tibbs would be back, you always start to wonder what's going to happen. So it wasn't shocking, but I don't think it makes any sense whatsoever.
Again, it's about the result. What more do you want?
Yes.
And if that answer is we want to get to and win the NBA Finals, well, first of all, so does everyone else. Mm-hmm. And your chances of doing that are very small. Every year. They're just small. You have a small chance of winning the title. So if that's the only acceptable measure of success, if the only acceptable measure is, did we win the title this year? No, fire the coach. You're going to go through 30 coaches in 30 years because it is very, 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 very hard to win. And he doesn't play his guys this much. He does this too much. Whatever he does or doesn't do got them to Game 6 of an Eastern Conference Finals. So nitpicking how he got there and firing him on the basis of that is just, I don't understand it. I don't understand what we're doing. And I know the old maxim of, well, it's easier to fire the coach, you can't fire the players. But the roster that the Knicks are dealing with, which by the way is very, very good, it's just not exceptional, right? There are defensive liabilities with your two best players. And there's the depth, as you point out, is an issue. So even though it's a very good roster that will get you deep, especially in this Eastern Conference, it is not, in my mind, a championship roster. Is it in yours?
I think it's an Eastern Conference championship roster. I think that if they just ran this whole thing back next year with a healthy Mitchell Robinson and maybe some nibbling on the fringes, right? You replace DeLon Wright and Landry Shamet maybe with more usable pieces. You can always kind of mix and match the back of your bench in free agency. I think they had enough to win the Eastern Conference. Look, Boston,
they almost did win the Eastern Conference.
They almost did, exactly.
So clearly they have
I'm
enough.
saying that they have enough talent to win the Eastern Conference, and I don't think a coaching change is going to change that one way or the other. My next question is, who do you think pulled the trigger on this? Because the Knicks have done everything in their power to telegraph that this was a Leon Rose decision and a Leon Rose only decision. I would like to sit here and call bullshit on that. Like, I do not believe that Leon Rose himself at the end of the season said, you know what? After standing by Tom Thibodeau 3 years ago when he was coming off a bad season, I'm now all of a sudden going to decide, when we're 2 wins away from making the NBA Finals, after we beat the juggernaut Boston Celtics. They didn't just beat the Celtics like a hampered version. Yeah, Porzingis was a little off, but Tatum was healthy for 4 of those games, right? They were down 3-1 before Tatum got hurt. Now we're going to decide that this is when my loyalty to Tom Thibodeau dissipates.
And not just the last 3 years, by the way, the last 3 decades.
Yes.
I mean, this is a decades-long relationship.
Yes. I don't believe for a second Leon Rose woke up. Look, it's probably not as simple as James Dolan went to Leon Rose and said, fire Tom Thibodeau, but I don't believe that Dolan wanted Thibodeau around anymore. I think Dolan was ready to make a coaching change with Tibbs.
And why? Why do you think that is?
Look, for the reasons we kind of articulate, I think that Dolan probably watched the team and saw an uninspired offense. He probably wondered, like everybody has over the years, why Tibbs doesn't dig deeper into that bench, why he's playing 40-plus guys playing 40-plus minutes a night. Mikal Bridges still an Iron Man after all these years, like why he doesn't, pull back on the reins a little bit during the regular season. I also wonder, like, Dolan was in these meetings, these exit meetings. It's been reported that he was in these meetings. So he's hearing from some players. And I'm imagining there are a few players that aren't giving Tibbs a full-throated vote of confidence. Like, what did Mikal Bridges say in that meeting? We know Mikal Bridges during the season was like, you know what? We don't need to play this many minutes. What did Katz say? Katz had his issues with Tibbs in the past, going back to Minnesota. I also want to know, Rachel, what Jalen Brunson said in that meeting. Because Jalen Brunson gave a full-throated public support of Tom Thibodeau after that loss to Indiana. But I'm having a hard time believing that if Jalen Brunson was as supportive of Tibbs in private like he was in public, I'm having a hard time believing they'd pull the trigger on that. Because if your star player, your superstar, says, we got to keep this coach, how often does it happen that a coach gets fired?
I think you're contradicting yourself here, because you started out by saying that James Dolan was a big part of this.
Yes.
Once you've said that, all bets are off.
Okay, fair.
Right?
Yes.
And by the way, James Dolan does not have a track record of listening to his star players.
No, he
right?
does what he wants.
So I just don't think, I think Jalen Brunson could have gotten up on this table and said, we need to keep Coach Thibodeau, and he probably did. I do believe that he gave a full-throated private defense of Tibbs as well, because again, that's a relationship that goes back decades, right? I mean, these relationships we're talking about in the Knicks organization, part of the reason they've worked so well is that these guys have a trust and muscle memory that goes back much further than working together in this particular setting. And I think Jalen meant what he said. I mean, I looked at his face when he was asked that question about Tibbs. He was sort of like, what are you talking about? How could you even think about getting rid of him? And then boom, a couple days later, there he goes. And I just, again, this kind of is the extended version of the conversation you and I have been having for 2 or 3 months, which is not everyone is going to win all the time. If you make all of these roster decisions, coaching decisions on, are we going to win the title, and anything less than that in any given year is just not good enough and we have to rip it all up, you'll never get anywhere. You have to have building. You have to have years building, and this was one of them to me. I don't understand what they were doing.
So now the question is, who do they get to replace him? because it sure doesn't look like there was a
No.
succession plan in place. Like sometimes you see a coaching change happen and they have a new coach ready to go right away. Sometimes it works. The Knicks clearly don't have that next guy up. And all the names that have been floated out there, none of them jump off the page to me and say, like, that makes a lot of sense. Like the first name that was floated was Michael Malone.
Mm-hmm.
I like Michael Malone.
Mm-hmm.
He was literally just fired for not listening to his GM about playing guys.
Yeah.
Like he is Tibbs light, right? His dad, Brendan Malone, was one of the mentors of Tom Thibodeau. So you're going to bring in Michael Malone to replace Tom Thibodeau. That doesn't make any sense. We've heard Johnny Bryant, okay, finalist for the Phoenix job.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that makes some sense. Jay Wright's not taking this job. I'd like to go on record saying I'm reasonably sure Jay Wright's not taking this job. When I did the story on Adrian Wojnarowski last December, one of the people that Woj talked to about retiring, getting out of the game, was Jay Wright. Because Jay Wright quit in 2022, and a lot of people back then thought it was because of NIL and the evolving college landscape. Well, Jay told Woj, like, no, I just want to be around family, man.
Yeah.
Like, I'm missing too much of my family's life. I don't – look, maybe in the last 3 years he's gotten reinvigorated, but I just don't get the sense Jay Wright wants to get back onto that hamster wheel, even if it does mean coaching his former players in New York. After that, like, what's the next obvious candidate? Who's the next coach out there that is A, better coach than Tom Thibodeau, and B, can coach in New York? Like, coaching in New York is not easy. Tibbs was born to coach in New York. His surly personality, his demeanor, his style, everything screamed New York Knicks head coach. That was his dream job for a reason. I don't know who else is out there that is obvious fit for this team. Do you?
I certainly don't know anyone who's going to make Jalen Brunson taller. I don't know anyone who can coach this team that can make Cat play a different kind of defense than he's played for the decade that we've seen him in the league. Again, there are roster issues on this team. They are not huge because obviously it is a team that got to Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals, so they're pretty good. But are they exceptional? Are they a championship-level roster? And maybe you're right. Maybe in the East, especially in the East where Boston's not going to have Jason Tatum next year, that it's enough. It's enough with this roster to go to the finals next year, and if they do it under a new coach, James Dolan gets to say, see, I told you, here we go. But I think the likelihood of that is low. Just because I think the likelihood for any team, any year is low to make it to the finals. And moving these deck chairs doesn't make sense to me over and over again with these teams.
I was, maybe just to go back a bit, like, if they had run this whole thing back, I believe they would have been the favorite to finish with the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference next year because they'd get Mitchell Robinson for a full year. And we saw Mitchell Robinson make an impact in the playoffs. We know Karl Anthony Towns tends to thrive playing alongside defensive-minded big. Had a lot of success in the regular season with the Minnesota Timberwolves playing next to Rudy Gobert. So you give him a full season. You give Mikal Bridges a second season with this team, acclimate, play under Tom Thibodeau. You tweak the bench a little bit, get a couple of guys like we mentioned. There's no reason to believe that with Boston taking a step back, Indiana's still out there, sure.
I was going to say, the Pacers' disrespect from you right now is pretty high.
The Pacers were still, they're a 5 seed? They were not a great regular season team. Maybe they're not a great regular season team. And look, the Pacers, by the way, we're not going to get into their offseason, but they've got some big decisions to make. They've got some big contracts they might have to dole out to keep that team together. The Knicks, we knew the core of that team was going to return intact. The core of that team was going to be enough to be a front runner in the Eastern Conference. I just think this is the Knicks going backwards. This is kind of the same old Knicks where James Dolan has his fingerprints on a basketball-related decision. You fire a coach that was the most successful coach in recent memory that turned around your laughingstock of an organization, along with Leon Rose, who played a big part in doing that. And now you let him go with no succession plan in place. I just think it's all a mess.
Again, doesn't make sense. The only thing you could do better than what they did was get to the NBA Finals and I guess win it. That was the beginning of the sentence of the press release was, getting to a championship level, delivering a championship. Yeah. If that is the standard, if you rip up the roster, if you fire the coach, every year you don't win the finals, your team will be a disaster in the long term. And as you point out, that is a James Dolan hallmark. So I believe it when you say it. I believe it sounds right. It springs true.
No, the other names that keep getting brought up now, I'm reading like Jason Kidd. I was told Jason Kidd does not want this job. Ime Udoka, why would Houston ever let him go?
Why would either of those guys leave where they are?
I mean, you could see. I mean, look, now that Cooper Fly's going to Dallas, I can see why Jason Kidd wouldn't want to leave Dallas. Maybe Ime Udoka liked coaching in Brooklyn, likes New York. I don't know.
Maybe.
But either way, like, why would the Mavericks ever let Jason Kidd out of his contract? Why would the Rockets, who are functional again, why would they ever let Ime Udoka out of his contract? There just isn't an obvious candidate. And whoever winds up getting that head coaching job, they better make it to the NBA Finals.
Because that's what I mean. That's it.
Tom Thibodeau showed how far you can get under him. The bar is Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals. You need to clear that bar to justify firing that man, because this group's not going to change, and it's probably going to get better for the reasons I mentioned. It's going to get better because Robinson's back. It's going to get better because Bridges is back. It's going to get better because they'll tweak with the roster a little bit. I just think that this is an old Knicksy type of move.
Where are you on the Kevin Durant rumors?
I don't like this. Okay.
I've gotten Chris agitated. It worked. I got him agitated.
Whoever thinks it's a good idea to trade Karl Anthony Towns for Kevin Durant, go to bed, right? I love Kevin Durant. He's 37 years old, and he's going to want a new contract. And the days of Kevin Durant being a great two-way player are over. He is still a great offensive player, but he is not a great two-way player anymore. Karl Anthony Towns is a deeply flawed guy. We know that. Player, I should say. As a guy, he's a great guy. But he is a tremendous offensive player. You saw in the playoffs his ability to take over games down the stretch. And I'd remind you, the roster is not a problem. You were in Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals. You beat the healthy Boston Celtics. Jalen Brunson, your star, cooked the Celtics' great defensive guards. You were right there on the cusp. If you hadn't choked away Game 1 in the way that you did, you might be sitting here in Oklahoma City enjoying good steak and getting ready to play Game 1 of the NBA Finals. I just think Would
that have been good enough for the Knicks? If Tibbs had reached the finals? I mean, that's what's crazy to me.
Well, that's the theory.
The
some people have the theory that they were going to fire him anyway. And they weren't going to let a long playoff run dissuade them from that. I don't really get that. They were the third seed in the Eastern Conference.
I was going to say that is just a level of shooting yourself in the foot that I do not understand.
It's the Knicks, though. This is what they do.